Hey, Megan.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Hi, Alexa. Hi, Nicole.
Hi.
Hello, good evening.
How you doing?
Welcome to Barn Besties, ladies. We are so happy to have you.
Thank you. We're excited.
So, Megan, we have with us Alexa King and her daughter, Nicole Freedman, and we are going to learn tonight all the things about the American Hackney horse. I am so excited. Are you excited?
I'm excited.
Yes.
We're excited.
So, long time breeders. I can't wait to learn all the things. And as I told the ladies just before we went on live, I'm going to quick read a very brief overview from the American Hackney Horse Association, but then we're going to get into all the things. Sound good?
Yep. We're
okay.
game.
So I went on to the hackneysociety.com, and they basically, there's a lot of information on here, but they talk about the origins as coming over from England, Norfolk, England. They originated from the Norfolk Trotters and then started to become more specialized, and eventually were brought over here in the U.S. Sounds like in the 1800s, and then got even more specialized. And of course, the breed, it broke out. We've got Hackney ponies and we've got Hackney horses. And tonight we're going to talk about Hackney horse, not the little ponies, right? I hear a puppy. So yeah, I mean, I don't need to get into too much of the details. If anybody wants to read what the American Hackney Society has to say, again, it's hackneysociety.com. But let's go ahead and get into Alexa. How did you get into the Hackney horse?
How did I get into the Hackney horse?
Yeah.
Well, you never know what's going to happen in your life when you do one thing with another kind of horse and you discover there's another horse that's involved with that animal. I was, when I was a kid in junior high, I raced trotting ponies on the track, 50, like a half-mile track. They were supposed to be registered Shetlands, but back then they were using Hackney's pony blood to put more trot into them and obviously give them more leg, because a Shetland at that time was, it looked like a little Thelwell pony. With the knowledge of hours and hours of jogging these Hackney ponies on the back roads outside of Indianapolis, I watched the motion. We only put like plates on them, not even pads, just plates on these old gravel roads. They were really sound, and I jog them 5 miles a day after school. After class, I'd go out and work these ponies. So to make a long story short, I moved to Muncie, Indiana in about 1973, I think. And down the road, I lived out in the country at a little farmette, I guess you'd call it back then. And I would drive by a farm, was on the right-hand side of the road, and it had black horses out in the fields with docked tails. And I'm like, I don't know what those are, but I got to stop and find out. So I pulled up into the driveway. This fellow, Joe Stonebreaker, had great big rocks out in the front of this house, which I thought was weird. But he was he built things, roads and things, so he had rocks in his front yard. So his name was Stonebreaker. So anyway, pulled up, and I'm like, what are those? And so he says, well, I'll show you. And he says they're Hackney horses. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm familiar with the ponies. And so I would stop there when I could and stop in and watch him working these horses. And he's kind of a crusty old guy. He was the president of the Hackney Society, by the way. And one day he says to me, he says, well, I think I'm going to retire from breeding these Hackneys. Would you be interested in buying my breeding stock? And at that time, he had what was remaining from a dispersal, quote unquote, that he had done, where a lot of these horses were sold to, and Nicole where was it? Argentina. And, but he had kept his Bowler's Black Cat, which is one of the mares that we were able to get. I got a pair of black mares and Cat, a stud colt, Boulder's Black Super Lady, and I can't think of the other ones I got. But anyway, I got this package of Hackney horses. So I'm like, sure, we'll buy them. And then my husband, Nicole's dad at the time, were like, well, what are we going to do with these horses? And I said, well, I'd been in the Arabian business as a kid too. I had Arabian horses one show at the Indiana Arabian Horse Show, raced my horse as a running horse on the track for the Arabians. So I was kind of a little jockeyette, you know. So I'm like, well, we could cross these Hackneys with these Arabians because they're trying to inject these half Arabs that have a lot of motion. And at that time, they weren't even using saddlebreds. I said, well, it's pretty obvious these Hackney ponies are very dominant because these Hackneys they look like Hackneys that had the Shetland in them. So I thought, well, that probably would work because they would put all the trot on the Arabian horses, and we might be able to get what we were looking for in a English pleasure and park horse. It worked out that way. The Hackney mares were bred as some boss bred Arabian stallions, and that's where we got started with the Hackneys. So Nicole, you were young, but you were there when we were breeding the half Arabians. I was also breeding every year because this is an endangered breed, or is it endangered now? Still, I can't remember. I would breed a mare or two a year for a purebred because we wanted to keep pushing the breed forward, and a lot of these mares were sort of being lost out into the ether because of the older Hackney horse men were retiring or dying, and the families weren't wanting to pick up the reins and breed these horses. So then I went on a mission to find some more brood mares and was able to do that. And then my young stallion got killed in a truck accident out in Scottsdale. Coming back from Scottsdale, he got killed. A bunch of horses got hurt in that accident. So we didn't have a stallion. So I put the word out that I was looking for a stud horse, and we were able to purchase an imported horse from England, Suddy Marksman, sight unseen. I'll never forget when they brought him up in the big van here in Wisconsin. I stepped up to the trailer and he saw me look over the railing thing, and he dropped to the ground. It scared him. I'm like, oh my God, what did we do? But they got him out of that trailer, and he was everything that I was looking for in a Hackney horse. He was European champion colt when he was in Europe, and then imported to the United States, and then won quite a few years up at the Royal Winter Fair. Elegant, beautiful, exactly what I was looking for. And he proved to be very dominant on our breeding program. You could walk out in the field and see these foals, and they look just like him. So that's it. That's how I got started with them.
Marksman was my introduction to the Hackney horse. And I know, Nicole, you've probably got a lot to say there, but I want to just say, like, when I first met you two, it was also when I met Marksman, we were all boarding in a facility together, and I met Alexa's sister first, and we got chatting, and she's like, oh, my sister's here too. You got to come see this horse of hers. He's a stallion. And I was like, oh, really? Because I had a young stallion at the time too. And I'm like, tell me about him. And she's like, he's a Hackney. And so we walked down the aisle to look at him, and I was like, oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
He was gorgeous.
Yeah.
So
a lot of quality. Yeah. Lots of quality and breed character. He looked like what he was supposed to look like, and very toppy necked. So he had when I would long line him, you could drive him with your little fingers. He's that malleable through the neck. And he was it was the best thing of the day when I went down to the barn to work that horse, to see him in front of me. I'd walk behind him with the long lines, and this horse would just bounce back, back and forth, getting him all nice and soft through the jaw and all that kind of stuff. It was a pleasure. It really was. He's so hi, Candy.
Yeah. So Nicole, how old were you when you got acquainted with Marksman? When you were allowed to get acquainted with him?
Yeah, I was really young. So I would say like 9. I think we bought him in 86. So I think I was 9. So yeah, I grew up with him, and so you have a lot of people talk about that one special horse, and I've been lucky. I've had a couple of those special horses, but Marksman was definitely it for me. So, and his son, Maker's Mark, but he really instilled the breed in me. I mean, we've had them my whole life. So, the Hackney Horse has been my passion for my whole lifetime. And I've got everything in the barn that is related to him, including a mare I just bought in December that I finally found that is related to him. It's a granddaughter. She's a granddaughter of his. So, he's definitely an icon for me, for sure.
We have a question from the viewers. What do they look like? Like, is there a breed standard for size, coloring, etc.?
There is. So the breed standard is 14.2 and over, and they tend to have a high set neck, nice deep sloping shoulder. They're round, so nice round shoulder, round hip. Super strong through their loin, and very athletic and very sound. Tons of motion in the front and rear, so very high stepping. All the extravagant type of motion that you're seeing in the dressage world right now really comes from the Hackney. There's no other breed that moves like a Hackney, so I suspect that there's quite a bit of Hackney blood in a lot of those warm bloods, because I don't know how they move like that without that type of pedigree. So they used to cob their tails. They don't do that anymore. So that was a distinguishing feature for them. But they are a harness horse, but they can also do other things. Did the person ask about color as well? So they come bay, black bay, black, of course, and chestnut. We don't get grays anymore. That was bred out of the breed about 100 years ago. So we haven't seen that in a long time. Some of them can have quite a bit of white. My line does not have as much white. Sometimes you get belly spots and big body splashes. Just kind of depends on the pedigree. So yeah, but we don't get any gray ones. I wish we did, because I love grays.
Or palominos.
Yeah, no palominos.
But you don't have to worry about like gray horse melanoma and stuff. So touched on, they're mainly a driving horse, but do they sometimes get ridden saddle seats?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'll answer that part.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, you want to have the fun of your life, ride one of those. They downshift in the back end, and they're go forward, and they're tons of fun. A lot of energy there, but it's controlled. And here's a little story to tell you, not just the riding part, but I bought I don't think 4 or 5 mares from a breeder in Peoria, Illinois. And their trainer told me, when I was standing out in the field, he said, "Oh, we drove this 4-in-hand underneath the train trestle with the train going over." And I said, "How'd that work out for you?" And he said, "Well, they kind of bounced a little bit, but they kept their feet on the ground and they kept going forward." I'm like, "That's a Hackney for you."
That's nuts.
They're not going anywhere until you tell them.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Okay, I want to ride one. So how would I do that? Well, you got to find one. That's the hard part, is they're so endangered. To try and find one these days is difficult. There's not very many of us left, but there's a lady down in Arizona that's doing some breeding, and is showing some horses in harness and pleasure shows, and they're doing some riding as well. There was a group of people out on the West Coast, but there really is not very many people left. The Amish community has a bunch of them now, because that's where a lot of them went the last 20 years or so. So, if you can find one that way, that's really the only avenue that you can kind of search them out. It took me a while to even find the mare that I just bought. It took me actually quite a bit of searching to try and find her. So,
And are you still breeding?
I am. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I sure am.
excellent.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
where are you located?
I'm in Toronto, Canada. Lived in Kentucky for a long time, and then met my husband and moved up here. So I am planning to breed 2 mares this year for purebreds. I've got a Dutch harness horse stallion that's half Hackney, and I bred him to my 3 Hackney horse mares last year. So I have 3 3/4 Hackney Dutch crosses. I mean, they're technically Dutch harness horses, but to me, they're more Hackney than anything. So, trying to do a little bit of purebred breeding because the market's so small, there is no market. So I, in my mind, have to kind of plan to keep them their whole life, as a longtime breeder like that. But sometimes you find the right person to come along and take one. They have been doing some dressage and jumping. They have been having some success that way. Because they are a little bit more consistent than a warm blood can be temperamentally. So people seem to really like them, and they're a moderate size. So they're not a 17 plus hand horse. They're usually about 15 to 16 hands is usually the right size for a Hackney.
Yeah. So let's go back to Marksman, because you mentioned his son that you two had. Let's talk about Maker's Mark.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever you'd like to talk about.
Yeah.
Am I correct? Am I correct? Was he used in Dutch harness breeding?
He was. So we lost him. It'll be a year ago in May. He was 34. You would have never known how old he was until about the last 2 months, because he was just all boy. And look great. So the breed really has a lot of longevity that way, and he was very sound as well, and up until the end. But Mom, you want to talk about Maker's Mark?
Maker's Mark, Marky Mark.
Okay,
so this is by Suddy Marksman out of the cat mare, the black cat mare, and
foundation mare.
Yeah, the foundation mare, and she's all English. They're all English bred. I don't even know how to explain this. He when I drove him up at Toronto at the Royal Winter Fair, all I could say to myself as I grabbed onto those lines, it was like grabbing the tail of a tiger. It was the most exciting thing you can imagine when this horse stepped off, and to watch him from the back end. People that have driven these horses, they're so cadenced and willing, they'll point wherever you want them to go. So Marky Mark, we were able to get him approved as a Dutch harness horse breeding stallion, right,
Yeah.
Nicole?
Yeah, through the KWPN.
Yeah, so we took him to the curing, and they have to do all this. He didn't have an overcheck on, and regular Hackney classes. He's got a side check, not an overcheck, but he didn't have his check on. So he was doing that just fine. Had to do all the things that they were telling him to do, and there was, I don't remember how many other horses were there for the curing, but the Dutch were really enthralled with this horse. So the whole place was full of Amish. I mean, it was up in northern Indiana, like a port or something.
We were the only English people.
We were the only English people there. So, and we're we do the saddlebred stuff and all that kind, all that kind of stuff. So when they called out his name as him being approved, I see Nicole come running from the warm-up pen over to me on the other side of the ring, and I mean, she jumps on me, and we're hollering, and yet and all the Amish people turn around, look at us like we were from Mars. I'm like, I don't care. So anyway, after that
year though, he was the only stallion both in North America and in Europe that had been approved. Right. So that was such a big deal, and he was 15 years old. Usually they approve them when they're 3 or 4, or sometimes a little bit older if they send them back through the curing system over there. But he had to pass all kinds of testing. He had to pass x-rays, endoscope, semen quality. He had to do the conformation, and then he had to do an in hand, and then he had to do in harness. So he had to go through this whole thing. And he hadn't been shown that much because we only had at that point 3 or 4 shows in North America. So it's not like he could go to a horse show every weekend and was a seasoned show horse. He wasn't. He went, a few times, and that was about it. So for him to get through that curing process was really a big deal.
Pretty
yeah,
impressive.
it was a big deal. And then we froze semen and send it over to Europe. So he's got a bunch of babies over there. And then my stallion that I bought 2.5 years ago, I think it's been now, was imported from Holland from one of those first foal crops. And I'd watched that colt from the time he was over there as a youngster and loved him and thought, I'd love to have that horse. Well, he ended up being bought through a big partnership and kind of disappeared, and then came available 2 years ago. And I jumped at the opportunity to buy him. So I never thought I'd own a Dutch harness horse in my life, but I don't look at him that way. I look at him as a Hackney horse-ish.
And he's beautiful.
Yeah.
But black.
Yeah.
With 4 white legs and a strip on his face. And he's got this big fat tail.
Yeah. He reminds me a lot of Maker's Mark. And he's very Hackney-like in his temperament too. So, but Maker's Mark was kind of the epitome of a Hackney horse in a way of his athletic ability. And you didn't have to do anything to him to get him to do his job. So he was just a very talented horses. Are they used by the gypsies in the UK? Well, the gypsies have taken over quite a few of the breeds like that in the UK. Yeah. And it's not they're not happy about it with the Hackney Society. So unfortunately, it's kind of gone that direction over there.
I feel like there is such a, as you mentioned, tight pool of people interested in preserving here. And you mentioned how many of these Hackney horses have gone into the Amish and probably Mennonite communities. And they're, they want something fancy for their going down the road horse. But the Dutch, absolutely. I do feel like the Dutch, they have a huge backing behind their Dutch harness horse.
Yeah.
Like it's huge in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And actually I've seen North American curing results from the NAW or, KWPNNA.
Yep.
There's becoming more and more, but like you said earlier, they're crossing them into, the riding horses to make dressage horses. And of course, Megan, we had a very famous U.S. Olympian horse that was part Dutch harness horse. Two Olympics ago. Is that right, Megan? Was it 2 Olympics ago? Yeah. So,
I think so.
There was when she did so well, there was suddenly everybody wanted to breed these Dutch cross harness horses onto warm blood mares. And so I ended up seeing back in the day, a lot of people saying, oh, I bred to, a Hackney horse or, Hackney cross, or I crossed my big warm blood mare onto, a large Hackney pony and, just all kinds of stuff. So, yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
There's another part of this too, is the half Arabs that we were producing. One of them is probably the all-time, I want to call him, everybody knows him, GTF Beetlejuice. And he was out of a Hackney mare. Okay, this little story. They were bringing this other mare in to breed marksman. And they had on the trailer another mare with a foal on its side that was a half Clydesdale out of this Hackney mare. And the guy said to me, he says, well, would you be interested in buying this mare? And she's standing on the trailer and I'm like, yeah, there's no doubt I'm going to have that one. And, but she ended up being, Fantasy, one of the better brood mares that we had. And she produced, by, was El Ghazi a national champion?
Mm-hmm.
El Ghazi, stallion from Poland that we bred, to, Fantasy, and we got Beetlejuice. But it was a lot of fun, which really elevated the what is a Hackney? it's not a pony. And we were like, no, you can't use the ponies. You have to use a horse because you'll get something that's for a kid to ride. You know, we can't guarantee that they're going to be a horse size, even if you breed it to a horse. So anyway, that's what we did with that. It was a half Arab, half Hackney, that really got a lot of people to see what kind of natural motion this horse. He was exciting, and he was bright bay, 4 white legs, strip on his face kind of horse. And he had a lot. He was real cocky and all show horse. And they're like, "Where'd you get that? Where'd you get that?" And I said, "Well, you know, you can't buy them. You got to breed them."
Yeah,
Now,
that's cool.
what's your goal for breeding now? Like to breed as many horses? I know you had said you want to be careful. What is your vision as a breeder and to maintain this breed?
So I am trying to keep my pedigree and continue my line that I have, that I grew up with. So I am doing that. I'm breeding every so often to just replace what I've got. So my mares are 17 and 18 years old now, and but they live a long time. So I haven't had the opportunity to breed a couple purebreds out of them for the last few years. I have had some previous, and they've been out doing things. You know, if I find the right buyer, of course, right? We all look for the right person. I don't believe in breeding stock just to breed
Collect it.
Yeah, I breed dogs too, and I don't do the same thing. I'm very selective about where they go because it keeps me up at night worrying about what happens to them. So I have to, because it's a rare breed and an endangered breed, I need to keep it in my head that if the right person doesn't come along, that I keep them for the rest of their life. And, you know, I'm 47 years old now, so that could be a long time if they get into their 30s, like Maker's Mark and his sister did. And Marksman did too. He was 28. So, you know, my big goal is to try and perpetuate the breed. What I'd really like to do is do some semen banking and, ovum banking in the future. So having that kind of in a safe spot for the breed eventually. So I've talked to a few people about that kind of an idea, but it's just an idea at this point. Of course, that takes funding and all kinds of other things. So, but you know, they do that with endangered breeds like tigers and elephants and all that. So it'd be kind of my big picture.
Yeah, and honestly, the reproductive world for the horses has gotten really. They do ICSI, and I mean, so it's even in the last 10 years, it's gotten to be really impressive of what they can do. They can harvest, depending on the mare and how, you know, fertile she is with throwing ovums. They can harvest anywhere from 1 to 20 something in one ICSI cycle, depending on what the mare is capable of pushing out. So, I mean, when you're talking, and can we talk a little bit about the endangered portion of this?
Sure. Yeah,
that would be great.
Yeah, so I read something earlier today because I just was doing a little bit of read up. The UK, so they are on the endangered, what is it called?
Livestock.
Yeah, it's the Livestock Trust there,
Right.
and they're critically endangered. So they say that there's less than 300 in the world, which is a lot less than I thought it was. I thought it was about 600. The UK says they have 12 stallions and 31 mares in the UK. We probably have a lot more because in the Amish and Mennonite community, there's a bunch that are not being registered. So I know that they're breeding them and they're out there, but it's a matter of trying to get them registered and accounted for. But it's less and less every year. So, you know, it's a uphill battle, unfortunately for us. We'd like to get new people in the breed that are, you know, appreciate the breed for what they are and want to take on some of that preservation eventually.
Well, let's talk to that because this is going to be available on YouTube and we're going to put all the hashtags out. So if people want to learn, Nicole, like, let's say there are young breeders out there who are like, wow, I love this breed. I really want to know more. Like, where can they reach out? Where should they go to learn more and maybe consider getting into the breeding business with this breed?
Well, they can always reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to anybody. I'm always available if anyone wants to call me and chat or send me an email. The Breed Society has a few people that are also around. The fellow that I bought my mare from, well, actually before that, I bought her from a fellow up here, but who actually bred her. He is a Mennonite gentleman, but he's very involved in the breed and is trying to do some things to try and get more numbers up and whatnot. So he seems to be very knowledgeable and I think would be a good asset as well. There's also Lynn Freeman in Arizona, who's very passionate about the Hackney horse too. So there is a few people within the breed, but if anyone wants to reach out to me, I can always put you in touch with somebody that, if I can't help you, I'll put you in touch with someone that I think can.
Perfect. I'll get with you after this and we'll go ahead and put whatever contact information you want down below in the description on the video. So it's always available for people to reach out. So let's talk about your stallion. We've kind of briefly talked about him. What did he do before you had gotten?
My Dutch stallion, or
yeah, your half Hackney, half Dutch guy.
So Geronimus,
grandson.
Yeah. So Geronimus came over to the U.S. As a 2-year-old, I believe, and then was purchased by a fellow in Michigan, and then did a couple horse shows, and then was bought by a group of Mennonite guys. For a bunch of money, and went to Iowa and was breeding mares there. So he hasn't done a whole lot other than being in the community and breeding a bunch of mares. So now he's here, and I've been basically, breeding my own mares. And that's pretty much it with him. He's a very interesting horse and very dynamic and very talented as well. But I don't plan to show him, unfortunately. We just, up here in Ontario, there's not much to do. And if he was in the States, we would probably do some more, but
So he was imported. Is he registered? Was he approved or anything?
No, they didn't put him through the currying, not there or in the States either. So
yeah. And you said he's 15 or 16, you said?
He's 13.
13. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. And so he carries that good foundation bloodline of marksmen, and you're going to be able to cross that back onto some of your marksman bred mare or bloodlined mare. So that's exciting. Are you aware of any like the other breeders we talked about? Are they banking frozen from stallions? And
I think there's some out there. We have some breedings on Maker's Mark stored that have just been there. I'm not touching it. Well, say that I'm going to breed my.
Oops.
Uh-oh, we might have lost her.
Stuff.
Oh, there we go. We lost you briefly, Nicole.
Okay. Sorry about that. So I was saying that I do have frozen semen on Maker's Mark. So I've got that banked here. Not here, it's in Kentucky. So planning on breeding a couple of my mares. But as far as other breeders go with frozen semen, I'm not really sure. I don't know what else is out there. I know for sure that there is one stallion up here that they did frozen semen on before he passed away. So that's always a good thing. I think people should have that no matter what, if you can.
Yeah, that's insurance, especially when you're talking an endangered breed. So with your discussions with whomever you've reached out with, in the UK, are they banking? You said they have about, a dozen stallions or so. Are they banking frozen? And, have they done the quarantine so that the frozen can be shipped around the world to try to preserve the breed?
A few people have. There are a few stallions that have been frozen for export, so that can be available. There's a really nice stallion over there that I'd love to breed to, but he hasn't done any frozen semen on him yet. So, everything comes down to finances. And the group that we all in this group in this breed are not the uber wealthy for the most part. We're just kind of people. So, it takes the finances to get that stuff done, and export semen is quite a bit more money than just regular freezing. So it just, we need sugar daddies.
Hackney sugar daddies.
We need sugar daddies.
Yeah, we need some wealthy people to get interested in the sport. And honestly, I think if they were able to see, if there was more, as you mentioned earlier, more shows where these harness horses, these beautiful Hackney harness horses can be shown, I think a lot of people would really be interested because they are stunning in harness.
Yeah. Well, there are quite a few classes now. So a bunch of the saddlebred shows have open harness classes, which is where they're showing the Dutch harness horses, but you can show a Hackney horse as well. You could show any breed actually if it meets the criteria. It's just a matter of, getting those horses to that show at that time. It depends on, where they are in the country. So we're pretty scattered, and with the numbers being so small, you might have one out on the West Coast and one down in Arizona and one on the East Coast. And, the show might be in Kentucky or Michigan or something like that. And so trying to get there is kind of costly, but there is some availability of some open classes now that they've been doing more at the saddlebred shows.
Well, that's good. Down a lot, but at least it's improving.
Yeah.
Are you seeing interest in, Alexa mentioned earlier, the crossing on Arabian mares. We've talked very briefly. I don't know that we really got into crossing on the saddlebred mares. Is there a lot of that occurs?
On that Arab side, there is still some. They've really focused on the half saddlebreds for the Arabians, but you will see a half Hackney still out there. Sometimes they're pony crosses, which, as my mom said, it could be a size issue. So everybody wants bigger. Everybody wants giant horses, and when you get something that's 14.1 or 2, it looks a little bit different. So, but if it moves and is talented, then it really shouldn't make a difference if it's big or not. So yeah, you'll see a few out there, but the majority in the Arabian world are saddlebreds.
I'm pretty sure, and Megan, you might remember this too, and actually Alexa, you too, both of you, or all three of you might. The tack shop that I grew up with, which is just down the road really from Megan, Oregon, was like the only tack shop in the area. I feel like their son showed Hackney ponies.
Yep.
So that was all I knew as a kid, and they were fancy.
Yeah.
Beautiful but tiny.
Yeah.
I thought their granddaughter showed the Hackneys. I didn't remember the son, but yeah, I'm pretty sure they did.
Yeah.
Some of us are crusty and old, Megan. Sorry. Yeah, when I was a little kid. They had them when I was a little kid. So, it was 40 years ago.
That was a long time ago.
I'm not going to say anything.
You can, it's okay. But I don't, yeah. So, to realize, I mean, obviously as a kid, you're clueless. There's just so much you don't know. But that was the first introduction. And they just referred to them as Hackneys. Oh, those are Hackneys. Those are Hackneys. Yeah. Well, obviously they were ponies because they were tiny. they were like little, 13-handers.
For them to make a Hackney pony, the English put the Welsh. They crossed them with Welsh ponies, which of course have Arabian in them too, and they're ponies. And I'm always saying, do you understand the difference between a pony and a horse? Well, no, it's a Hackney horse or Hackney pony. I'm like, no. A pony has a different mindset. The horses are like a horse. They think like a horse. Ponies are different. I mean,
the devil.
If you like ponies, they're great. But they're devious little things, and I think they get a kind of a bad rap because of that. But that's what they are. So what'd you expect? But and I think too, as styles change, they've changed the Arabian, not the purebred. Well, actually the purebreds too, but the half Arabians. I actually had one of the first half saddlebred half Arabians that was bred by a saddlebred farm up in the northern part of Indiana, and she was so different than the half Arabians that were 3/4 Arab, 7/8, all this stuff. They all look like Arabians. And here's this big, tall 16-2 hand bay mare. And that sort of started that whole, where can we get one of those kind of thing. And I happened to just buy her at what we used to call them a Class C show. She's tied to the side of a 2-horse trailer. And there must have been a, horsefly on her back, because she had it all, curved down and trying to buck. And I thought, God, that's a cool looking horse. And so the girl got on her and rode her around. I thought, man, I'm going to have that one. So they sold that mare to me. I took her to Indianapolis, and I was just riding around in the makeup arena, and some of the top trainers in the country now, the Stokowskis out of Ohio, bought her from me right then. And Then that's when they started showing the half saddlebred crosses. But to get back to my point, the Arabian, is there an animal in here? The Arabian horse crosses because they like that saddle horse look. The Hackney crosses are more rounded and not so long bodied. You know what I mean? Long body. They don't look like saddlebred. So you sort of have that to contend with if you're trying to breed top-notch half Arabs nowadays. They can't out-trot a Hackney, but they don't look like a saddlebred. You see what I'm saying? But I think the Hackney's so strong in what they look like that it's very difficult to change them into a saddlebred. They do not look like a saddlebred, and they never will, unless there's saddlebred in them. So that's the way I look at it. So as a breeder, as Nicole's, she does all that now to keep to the breed standard is a horse. See, I knew this was going to happen. The animals are going to only be corralled for so long. It's a difficult place to be. Do you feed what's popular right now, or do you preserve what it can be used in the future as that Hackney horse? And I think Nicole's done a really good job of keeping to the breed standard and looking at it like we don't want to bastardize what these horses look like, because to me, if it's a Hackney, it ought to move like a Hackney, and it should look like a Hackney and act like a Hackney. So
I totally agree. Like, as watching the warm bloods through the 80s and 90s, like, you knew a Holsteiner jumped, right? Like,
right.
And I enjoy that now. It's like a Heinz 57, and you're like, what's what here? And those lines were so strong. I can't agree more with you.
Right. I had a Hanoverian mare from Germany that was gray, and she was of that old style pedigree that I was told, because I didn't know anything about the pedigrees on her, and I thought, well, I might breed a foal out of this mare, but I don't want to just do anything. And so I talked to several different warm blood people, what do you do and what's marketable? What do we want to do? And I know I'm going to get killed for this, but I said, I could breed her to Maker's Mark. And the guy at the Hanoverian Society, I think is the president, he said to me, what would you want to do that for? And I'm like, well, first of all, improve her neck, that, but I got really told that probably wasn't a very good idea. I thought, okay, this may not be something I need to do. but that mare looked like an old style Hanoverian. She was very lovely movement, but not this thing going on. So anyway.
Yeah, it's really changed. The dressage horses have changed in the last 10 to probably 15 years. They've really morphed into almost looking more like, driving.
Yeah.
Fancy driving horses.
Yeah. Yep.
And they're hot, and most people that are purchasing have a harder time with them. I wish they weren't as hot. I mean, for me personally, that would be great, but the market is mainly adult amateurs in the dressage industry.
Oh, wait a minute. And how old are they?
Yeah, they're 50s.
Okay, I'm saying the little old ladies from Pasadena need something they can ride that's not got steam coming out of its nose. Well, I can understand, Yeah. I can understand. When I was 20 and 30, I would think that was the best thing ever happened. But when you get older, not so much want to do that.
Yeah.
I'll watch it, but I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, I'm just I keep circling back on, the concept of how few horses there are of this breed. And
that's sad.
I'm always looking for ways to solve problems, and other than trying to find ways to connect breeders to breeders, and of course the Hackney Society's out there, and you know, I mean, Nicole, you've talked to, you know, you've been in touch with people and you have contacts and all that. But yeah, it to me, you know, having known and been introduced, gosh, Alexa, when did we meet? Late aughts, right? Or, you know, or early aughts.
I don't even remember that stuff.
I think it was
That's a
like
long time ago.
01, 02. I'll go with that, you know.
Yeah.
I had just moved back from Chicago. So, you know, and you still, you know, obviously you had Marksman, and that was my introduction. And I mean, you know, the coolest horse. And I, you know, it's nice to know there are a lot of these out there in the Amish community, but they're very likely no longer purebreds, and they're not registered, and nobody knows their origins. And
yeah, we
you know,
can't
how
figure
sad.
out. We can't figure them out because they don't name them names that sound pedigree wise. So you don't know. You know, you have to, as Nicole knows, you kind of have to dig around to find out whose mother and father we're dealing with. Yeah.
Right. And, you know, how much did they pay attention, you know, because you're talking generations of horses. And, you know, that's the one thing is the Amish and Mennonite community do love a really fancy driving horse, but, you know, there's no paper trail really in theory. No. I think Nicole touched on a Mennonite person that, you know, is trying to help preserve.
Question. Why or how do you pick the names? I know, like, I bred a few Dutch horses and there was always the first letter, but your names are so much cooler than the names that I deal with. I mean, I'm a dressage trainer, I'll admit it. But a lot of times the horses that I import are like Guga Gaka Nikiga. You know, like they're like I want to ride a Maker's Mark. I mean, that is a great name. I'm sorry. And I'm a little superstitious. I don't change their names. So how?
Right.
How do
we don't either.
Okay. How do you pick the names? Because they're so cool.
Can I answer that?
Yes, Mother.
Okay. My daughter has a very long list of acceptable names. So even when I was asking for a name for one of my show dogs, Nicole, what should I name my dog? And she gives me about 10 different options. And but names are really important. You know, I think they're very important for a horse, especially a breeding stallion or like that, or a horse that's going to be out in the ring. It needs to be something you can say it and remember it. So it's all about like kind of a marketing tool, I guess.
It's their brand. It's a brand.
It's their brand. Yeah, their brand. Yeah.
And do you put your farm name on their name as well? Yeah, it's definitely advertising. I think it's so important. I love to see that because then the breeder gets acknowledged.
Yeah. And we breed. So we try and name after the family, right? So Maker's Mark is after Marksman. And then I had a Marksman son named Search Mark, and I had an Indelible Mark. And so we kind of do that. And I've got a Beauty Mark. So, you know, and then the warm bloods, not the warm blood, but the Dutch harness horses, of course, you have to go after the letter. So I'm using the letter, which is this last year was U, which was terrible. It was difficult, but then we put the GTF after their name too. So, you know, trying to incorporate their family names in there and follow down the line. I kind of do the same thing with the dogs as well.
Which is what does GTF mean?
Good Thunder Farms. Yeah, which I kept it going. I didn't change the farm name.
I know. That was the weirdest deal. You know, when we were up in Mankato, Minnesota, driving through the winter wonderland and went by a little sign that said Good Thunder with an arrow that way. This a long time ago. And I thought that's a good name for a farm. So we named the horse farm Good Thunder Farm, or GTF is what they put on them. So it's been around for a while.
Longer than me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have a website, Nicole, then?
Nope, I don't. It's on that list of things I need to do, but I just never get to it. So, yeah.
How about social media? Do you have is there a Good Thunder Farm on Facebook?
Nope.
Nothing yet?
Nope, just me. You can find me on Facebook, and I've got a lot of horse and dog stuff there. So anybody can find me there.
Well, like I said, we will, put the information down below in the description. So people, if they are really interested in reaching out to you, they can do that. because that's, you know, it is important. I'm so interested in hoping that this breed doesn't just kind of, what's the word, you know, get melted into other breeds.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They are an improvement breed for
Yep.
like the Dutch harness horse, you know, type situation, but it would be sad to see the purity, what, you know, has been the purity of the breed to kind of disappear. That'd be really sad.
Yeah, we're trying. There's a few of us that are trying. So,
Nicole, are there any in Australia anymore?
Yep, there are. I don't think
They-
there's very many. I think they're also like the UK. They've got
Yeah.
a real limited amount there, but
Yeah.
there are still
Yeah.
some in there. There's a bunch in South Africa. They've got quite a few in South Africa.
Yeah.
But that's a hard one because there's some diseases in South Africa on importing horses. You guys might know about that, but they a lot of them have some weird disease down there, so they can't import them into the US because of that. Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. It's like, I don't know what it is. I can't remember.
I remember what it was. You know, I knew
Yeah.
what it was. I don't remember anymore. But
Mhm.
so I flashed on the screen our resident Australian Celestial Rogue Sue. She's like, I don't think they have them in Australia, and I said I doubt it. But now
they
you've
do.
told me better that there are probably a few down there.
There are still some down there. I don't think very many, but there used to be a few big breeders in Australia.
Wow.
But I think there
Yeah.
is still an Australian Hackney Society.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
the same English lines that we've had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they all come from England, so
Well, yeah, but they were, you know, from there too. That's pretty impressive.
Mhm.
You know.
So how interested are the breeders in England in trying to preserve their breed? It is their breed that originated in the UK.
It's the old people are dying out.
yeah. We
That's
just
what
lost
happens.
a big breeder, John Chicken, a couple months ago, and he was a big breeder. His farm name was Stapleton, and he bred a lot of really nice horses over the years, horses and ponies. But he passed away. I'm not sure who's taken over for his breeding stock. And Barbara Stockton, who was the past president of the Hackney Society over there, is breeding some horses. Jill Ryder's sister over there as well is breeding some horses. Not many, but you know, every few help. Ernie Walsh and his son have a few as well. So, you know, there's a handful. Yeah.
But the problem with it is it's logistics, because once
Yeah.
the people that the parents die, or you know, they're not raising horses anymore, the kids don't always want to do this horse thing anymore. So, you know, they're not interested.
And that's
And that's the problem.
Yeah, we lost
You know.
Nicole a little bit again.
Yeah.
You're occasionally losing you, Nicole, but at least you're coming back, which is good. We should mention that Nicole didn't have power 28 or 29 hours ago. So we're very happy she's got power and she's with us. But so what we need, so YouTube people, what we need to find are some people who have a little bit of money, who might be interested in helping to preserve this breed, because as we talked towards the beginning of this live stream, there are some veterinary advances. We talked about the ICSI being able to harvest a lot of ovocytes from mares.
Mhm.
And by doing that, you know, in one ICSI, if you can get 10 viable, you know, ovocytes in, you know, can through artificial insemination, potentially out of one ICSI treatment, let's say get 10 ovocytes, and let's say get 10 viable good embryos out of that, you can really start looking at preserving the breed. But it, you know, as mentioned, it's thankfully they're really, you know, perfecting how to do that. You need to obviously have quality mares that can withstand the procedure and produce a lot, but you could look at pushing the population up. And we need to get the stallions need to get frozen, and you know, the whole quarantine thing, but it all shakes down to some cooperation, and you know, cash is king. We need wealthy people to take an interest.
But also on that idea is, you know, you can produce all the foals you want, but you've got to have training. They've got to be able to take them to the horse shows. You've got to promote all that end of it, and that takes a that's a little bit different than just producing the foals and then what do you do with them? And it takes a while. It doesn't take that long, but they're not ready as a 2-year-old. They don't, you have to wait till they grow up a little bit. So it's an investment in time and money, to bring along a horse like that, a nice horse to get it to where you want it to be. And it takes a while. And that's the way old horsemen used to do things. Nowadays, they want an instant gratification, like overnight, that type of deal. And it doesn't work that way anymore.
It's a big
No.
commitment.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I lose sleep over it if I breed one, and what do I do with it? Because I am so committed to the breed, and it weighs on me. So, but I do think that banking of genetic material is the way to go. That way it sits there and you can access it when you need it. I do wonder if there's grant money that's available, that you could tap into through some rare breed or rare endangered species type of a situation. So I've never gotten that far because I'm busy with real world stuff and with my business and all that. So, I just wish I had the time to set aside and do that kind of research and things, but maybe somebody else might be interested in helping. I don't know, carry the torch.
Yeah, or maybe somebody who's looking to find a way to, do something tax deductible could create a nonprofit type situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, once you harvest through ICSI and you can get some embryos, those can be frozen just like the semen, and in theory lasts indefinitely. So,
well, that would make me happy to know that some of these really precious bloodlines are going to still be available down the road.
Yeah.
When you could finally call on it and say, God, I'd like to have a marksman son, daughter type thing, and it's possible.
Right.
Because as these horses get scattered, the bloodlines get diluted, because people don't really know what they're doing. They've got one, breed it to this horse. That's a Hackney. Well, we like better than just a Hackney. We want it to be a really good one. And that's what your goals are, is to try to get a beautiful horse that is athletic, that can do the job and thrill you when you watch it from the ring. That's what I want. I want to stand there and go, oh my God, look at that. What is that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, Megan, you got any more questions? We were promising to try to keep this down to, an hour. And I'm afraid if we get off onto another major tangent, we might be here longer. But this has been really fun to talk and listen and hear, the history that you two have with the breed, and to learn more, because I as we've mentioned, people just, you don't hear about it. You hear about the ponies a little, but it's important to have this out here.
I just love your story and your energy, and your love for the breed. It makes me want to go ride a Hackney. I do. So if anyone is in Wisconsin, I want to ride your Hackney if you're open to it. And like I said, I'm a dressage trainer, so bring me a Hackney. I think that is really, I think it sounds like a dressage horse. I know it's a driving horse, but I'm like, all those abilities are what I'm looking for. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story.
You're very welcome. Anytime.
It's really amazing.
I want to be in a carriage. I want to be in a carriage.
You want to be the carriage?
I want to be in the carriage behind one of these magnificent. Yeah. I want to be behind one because they're stunning. The ears, the up neck,
Oh yeah. Well, they're
the motion, like you said. How cool,
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. They really are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be the people in the carriage that everybody's jaws are on the floor looking at you going by, going, oh my God, look at that horse, and wow, look at those people. They're so lucky.
Yeah, right.
Get my
Queen
of England.
I'll say one last thing. I was in Saratoga Springs, New York, because I do this art stuff, and we were driving down the main drag, and there was a McDonald's, and at that time they had some Hackney four in hands there. This has been 20 years ago probably, and I look over, and there is the 4 in hand of Hackneys through the drive. They're going through the drive-through with the coach. I loved it. And the Hackney horses. I'm like, yeah, that works. I like this town. This works.
I will tell you, when I was a little kid, we would ride our horses because the barn was kind of really on the outskirts. And I think there was like a Dairy Queen that was like maybe 2 miles away. So we'd ride our horses into town, go through the Dairy Queen drive-through,
Of course,
and then eat our Dairy Queen on the ride. The horses would walk us back home. So
yeah,
that would have been cool to see.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
no, thank you, ladies.
You're
Nicole,
welcome.
anything you want people to know, or any more comments from you?
No, I think I'm good. Just if anybody has any more questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Well, we appreciate that so much. And thank you, ladies, so much
Sure.
for your time. I really appreciate it. I've been looking forward to this. Megan,
Thanks for the great questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
we appreciate it so much. So have a great night, ladies.
Yeah, you
and
too.
like I said, I will get with Nicole, put her contact info down below for future.
Great.
So, great. Have a great night.
Yeah.
Bye,
Take
ladies.
care. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, that was so much fun, Megan. Oh, I love that. I knew they were going to have great stories. I had heard on occasion from, Alexa and Nicole, little hints and of these stories. And I was like, I can't wait to hear more. Cause when I moved back from Chicago is when I, met Alexa and her sister. And then I met Nicole and Nicole's sister and met Sonny Marksman. And he was stunning. Just what a stunning stallion. I mean, he's just, you looked at him and you're like, whoa, that's a quality horse. I don't know what it is, but wow. you know how that goes. So
yes, I do. You're just like they attract you and you can't keep your eyes off of them. That's what you want.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. And it's sad to, hear about potentially losing a breed.
300. I mean, I was like blown away. Wow.
Yeah. Like Nicole said, she knows, that Amish Mennonite communities probably have more, but that information is going to be lost if they don't have it recorded.
Right.
And some of them probably do have things written down, but whether or not we would ever get access to finding that, and whether they're crossing. I have heard, that every now and then the Amish or Mennonite community will come out to buy really nice horses and bring them back, because they do look at breeding really, stunning harness horses. So, so that was fun. That was so much fun, but welcome back.
Sorry. I still feel like I'm in a bubble. I'm like,
yeah, you got the travel lag. We can't call it jet lag, but you got the travel lag. So
yeah, we're lagging.
Well, it's been a long week, right?
Yeah, it's been a long week. I am
and a lot of miles.
But it was so great to be home. The girls did an amazing job. My barn looks amazing. The horses look good. So it's great. It's great to be home. So I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like home. But well, thanks everybody for joining us. I know we still have a few people hanging out, and we appreciate that. Might take a day or two, but yep. Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Get me going. You're gonna get me going on that. But yeah, we'll put Nicole's contact info. I'll probably link the Hackney Society's website. It's just hackneysociety.com from what I recall. And I think it would be really cool if somebody saw our video and was really interested in helping preserve the breed, and made some effort to reach out to the society, to Nicole, whomever, and
I think it'd be super.
Find a way to support,
to help. Yeah, totally agree. Love it.
It'd be really cool. We'll have to find a way somehow, a way to either get you on one or get us behind in a carriage or something.
I totally want to. I will repost this video asking for that question.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
Exactly. That would be really cool. So I don't know, anything else we got other than a welcome back? We should talk about 2 weekends from now. Midwest Horse Fair.
Yeah, we're gonna be at Midwest Horse Fair.
You have a booth, and I'm gonna come join you guys to help out.
Yeah, we have my farm has a booth, Lindenhof, and then I am riding my horse in a few demos, dressage demos, so that'll be fun. And
Mr. Cameraman is going to be there.
He is going to be there, but you know what? We're going to have a new cameraman. Yay, Derek. But our
We have
cameraman,
met Derek,
we have. Derek has been on the show.
the lighting man, the arena lighting man.
And the ribbon wall.
And the ribbon wall. He
And
was
the
Mr.
ribbon wall.
Cameraman.
So he is going to
wall.
be
Yeah.
the cameraman for Midwest Horse Fair, and we'll be sharing what it takes to exhibit and have a booth for your business. So that's what we're going to be. Oh!
Do it again. Do it again. That
one's mine.
is awesome.
That one is mine. Yeah. So our Mr. Cameraman, that one, the floating head, will also be a part of the booth, but he will be doing the personal training side of his life. So come on out and get some personal training at the horse fair.
Yep, and that's in Madison, Wisconsin, second week of April 2025. Used to always be the third, but the third weekend in April this year is Easter. So they bumped it up a week. So yeah.
And then,
did you see that?
right? Yes, I did. It's never gonna end.
That was hilarious.
And then we do have another live stream with Reese Koffler Stanfield. I'm super excited. She's coming on the 21st, which is a Monday at 6 p.m. And I'm not sure if we have anyone else scheduled. So working on that.
We have kind of the prep for the Midwest Horse Fair and all the shenanigans around that. That's going to be a lot, so.
Yeah. And
we're driving home, so.
Yeah, and we're starting barn tours. The two of us. I am so excited to be reunited with you.
Oh boy.
No one has a clue unless you interview people on a video how difficult it truly is.
Yeah, it's rough. Yeah.
I miss my bestie, so I'm super, super excited.
It's rough. I do have do you still have, they don't show up. There we go. My microphones. Do you guys still have your microphones?
I do. Yeah. I
have this for Mr. Cameraman. It's a cord for him.
Yeah. Yeah. We're getting the hookup. He's been playing with the drone. So we'll see if maybe we can start taking video from up above too. That's
cool.
I'm pretty pumped about that.
We should also give ourselves a little congratulations. 1,000 congratulations.
Oh, yeah. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed. I am grateful.
We are so excited for our first 1,000. You worked hard on that.
Yeah.
I see you're making some side eye.
Yeah. AV's looking at me.
So you got dinner ready?
No, I've already eaten.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. It is late. It's about that time, but yeah, we're thankful and grateful for the 1,000 subscribers. And
we need to tell people we have started a Patreon page. That has different information. So if you're looking to have guidance and help through sorry guys, I'm a little brain dead, but with the management side of your business, like I've shared my training contracts, my instructor's manual. We've started videos with other professionals that offer advice. And then Stephanie has a great idea, which is putting a course together on how to develop your business or build a barn. So we have a lot of things that we are working on and will hopefully share and help grow, whether it's a training business, a boarding business, a breeding business,
private farm.
A private farm. So we want to help anyone in the horse industry. And due to Eliza Sidner's survey, we found that most people aren't strong on the planning. So we want to help people become strong and work together. So check out our Patreon page, please.
I'm like sort of disappearing.
No, I see you.
Okay.
No, you can't disappear. I just
see that ear disappears and then it comes back and Well, it's the headset really, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for that, but we should wrap this up. Go ahead and both of us could get to bed. Thanks everybody for checking it out. Those of you who are wrapping back up and coming through and watching this, thank you so much. We'll have Nicole's contact information down below. Yeah, have a great night. Right?
Night. Nighty
We'll see
night.
you all on our next video. Bye everybody.
Bye.